Hey, what's up everybody? In this video tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at how to create a Carnival game using Fusion. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is come over here, come up here to the top left-hand corner. We're going to find the data panel. Let's pick on the data panel. All right, and if you have not already done so, you're going to have to create a new project. And in order to create a new project, you're going to have to come up here, go to the blue button, pick on New Project, and you're going to be giving it the name of 2021-2022 LTHS IED. That's going to be the name of that project. All right, we're going to have one project for the remaining portion of our course. All right, we're going to use the same project over and over because if we double click on this project, once we are finished with it, now we can start creating folders. So any little activities, projects, problems that we're working on in class, we're now just going to create a new folder. So I'm going to do that just right now. I'm going to go ahead and just call this one my Carnival game. And since I've already got another one with the same name, I'm going to add a 2 to it. All right. So once we have created our Carnival game folder, I'm going to go ahead and double click on it. And now I have a design that's running right now. If I come up here and go to save, we can now see it's asking us to type in a name. That is our folder name, and this is going to be our project. All right, and everything is mapping back to the correct folder, so I'm happy. I'm going to go ahead and just call this one my bean bag, if I can type, toss game. Okay, and I'm going to say that this is my top portion. Okay, so beanbag toss game top. I'm going to go ahead and do a save. I'm going to go ahead and hide the data panel now to give me some more screen real estate. And the first thing I'm going to have you do is come up here, go to your avatar at the top. We can pick on that, and then down below we can see preferences. This is one thing you're going to do at the very beginning of class just to make sure we have Fusion set up right. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to do that. So underneath default units, we can see design. Make sure your default units for new design is going to be inches. Okay, if it's not, select inches and say okay. Okay, for this particular file over here, if we look underneath document settings, we can also see units. If it's not sitting in inches, you're going to have to hit the little pencil and set this up to be inch, and then finally hit OK. All right, and now we're ready to get things started for the top of our beanbag toss game. So I'm going to come up here, pick on Create Sketch. All right, now I want to be picking on any of these work planes. It does not matter. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick on this one. And now that we're here, all right, now we can go ahead and get started with our rectangle. So I'm underneath Create here. We can find Rectangle, and one of the options is going to be Center Rectangle. All right, so a center rectangle, I'm going to start this at the origin by picking on it. I'm going to move my cursor up towards the top right, and now it's starting to ask me for dimensions. So in my case, it's asking me for the left dimension. It could be asking you for the bottom dimension. So just know that our board is going to be 36 by 48. So I'm going to say that this is 36. I type in tab, I type in 48, I hit enter, and now I zoom out, and now I can see that my rectangle is 36 by 48. Now, if you happen to miss those dimensions in that rectangular feature, let's see if I can grab this. Here's how you can fix that. All right, if you come up and pick on sketch dimension, all you have to do is pick the line, pull it out, pick it to place it, and type in what that dimension is, which in our case is 48, and hit enter. Now I can dimension this line by picking it, pulling it out, picking it to placing it, type in 36 and hit enter. All right, and now we're ready to go. So we have a 36 by 48 board. All right, I'm done creating my sketch. So now I'm going to come up and pick on Finish Sketch. Okay, so in order to extrude this, I want to be able to see that extrusion happen while I'm doing it. Come up here, hit the home icon, maybe zoom out a little bit, and now I'm going to use Extrude. Okay, when Extrude functions, so when I get Extrude started, all right, you're going to see how it detects that that profile is there and it's ready to use. Now I just grab the arrow, I pull up on it, and the thickness of our material is going to be 0.75 or 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to go ahead and just say OK on that. All right, so now I need to drill a hole going down through the center of this. So I'm going to create a sketch. I'm not going to be picking on any of the orange planes, all right? Avoid those. Instead, come over here to the surface of our board. We're going to pick on it, and now we're looking directly at the top of that surface. I'm now going to be using circle command, starting this right from the origin. And in my case, I'm going to say that my diameter is 6 inches. Okay, I'm going to finish that sketch, do an extrude, pick on the inside of the profile, and now I can simply bring it down. If we see the red highlight, that means it's going to be doing a cut operation. If I come here to the arrow and pull up, we can see it's gray. All right, that's going to be a join operation. But in our case, we want to cut it out, so I'm just going to send that all the way down through it and say OK. All right, so what I want to avoid happening is if bean bags are landing on the board, it's not going to be sliding down and going into the hole if this was at an incline. All right, so I'm going to be building a wall around this hole. So here's how we do it. We can create a sketch back on the board, no orange work planes, on the board. I'm going to be using offset. So offset you can find up here. I'm going to be picking the inside of the hole. You can see how it goes to this blue highlight. And now I can grab this slider bar, I can pull up, and now I can type in what my wall thickness is, which is 0.125. If I zoom in close enough, I can see two lines here, two circles that I'm going to use for my profile in my next extrusion. I'm going to say OK on that, and now I'm going to go into the home view. Okay, so once that is done, I'm going to use extrude, get in close, and I can find that area in between those two circles, so I can pick it. I'm going to zoom out, grab the arrow, I can pull up on it, and the distance I want to bring this out is 1 inch. So I type in 1, and I say OK. All right, so we have that wall built around the hole. Now I'm going to create a 2D sketch, pick the top of the board. Now I'm going to create a circle starting here from the origin. In this case, I don't know, I'm going to bring this out like 18 inches for my diameter and hit enter. I'm going to use offset while I'm here by picking on the line using the slider, and that distance that's going to be going out is 0.125, and I say OK and finish the sketch. I'm going to look at this in a home view, use my extrude, and now I can come in here between those two circles. I can pick on that profile using the arrow. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, and I'm just going to bring this one up like 1.5 inches. Now I'm going to go ahead and say OK. All right, so we have our board created. Now what we need to do is apply a material. In order to apply a material, we're going to come here to the top. We're going to right click, okay, to the top of the browser. We're going to right click on the name, come down here and find physical material. Looks like the checkered raindrop. So I'm going to pick on physical material. Our physical material dialog box is going to come up. Okay, I'm going to come down here and find wood. I'm going to scroll down. We're going to be using plywood for this. So I'm going to find my finished plywood. I'm just going to drag this over the line. I'm going to drop this right to the top of it. I can now close out the dialog box. And now all the physical materials, the properties for those materials have now been attached to this part. Okay, so since it's gray, unfortunately, this is one of those materials that no image loads with it to drop in. Okay, let's just go ahead and paint this up. So if we wanted to paint, we're going to come up here to the same exact place. We're going to right click, come down here, find appearance, and now my appearance dialog box is going to show up. Okay, I'm going to scroll down, okay, until I find paint. I'm going to pick on the paint folder, and now it's going to give you all sorts of different choices. I think Metal Flake looks really nice, okay, and now you have all these paints that you can apply. Now, for any reason, if you're looking at any of these choices and there's a little arrow, like a symbol over here, that means it needs to be downloaded. So you can go ahead and pick the arrow first, it's going to download it, and now we can use that on this board top. So I'm going to use Metal Flake Blue. I'm just going to go ahead and drag that over the line, apply it to it, and close out. All right, so I have different regions of my board. So I'd like to start applying different sorts of color to these different regions. Okay, so my inside region I'm going to say is yellow. Okay, so I'm going to just pick on this face. Okay, I'm going to right click, come down here and find appearance. And now my appearance dialog box is going to show back up again. You can see how I have different colors. I'm going to go ahead and just apply like that to be yellow and hit close. That's for doing one individual surface at a time. If I want to do multiple surfaces, I'm going to pick on the surface. I'm going to zoom in, hold down Control, and I'm going to pick the second surface. So 2 surfaces have been applied. Now I can right click here in the blue area, and I can come down and find appearance again. And now I can go ahead and apply that yellow to it. All right, so that is done. All right, I have one more face that I want to paint yellow, so I can pick on that, right click, do an appearance, apply yellow to that, hit close, and now I'm going to come in here, pick this face, hold down Control, I'm going to pick on this face. I can right click, go into my appearance. Okay, and now I can select a different color. So I'm going to say red on this one, and I can go ahead and close. All right, so it's actually made of plywood, but we've just gone out there and we've done appearance changes, making it look like it's painted and so on. All right, so my beanbag toss game top is now done. So I'd hit a save, say okay to this. Okay, and I'm done making my top, so now we can go ahead and get started with the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and begin a new design. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save this as beanbag game, or beanbag toss game, right? And I'm going to call this side. I'm going to hit save. So I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch, pick on a work plane. Okay, and now I can go ahead using line commands, start it from the origin. I'm going to pick it to start it. I'm going to pull this up. It's now asking me for a distance. So the width of my board was 36 inches, so I'm going to make this 36. Okay, and once that is done, okay, once I hit tab, it's now going to be asking me for what angle I want that to be. So I'm just going to say in this case it's going to be 30 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Okay, so right now this is the surface that this plywood top is going to rest on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create the rest of this wedge shape. So I'm going to use the line command. I'm going to draw this over, make this a horizontal line. I can get out of the command by hitting escape once I've drawn it. Now I can come up here, go to this point, bring this straight down, keep it totally vertical. I can hit escape to get out of the command once I've drawn it. And now I can use trim to trim up this portion and this portion. And now I'm done with that wedge, so now I'm going to finish the sketch and look at this in the home view. I'm going to use Extrude. I'm going to pull out on this. And the true dimensions for a 2x4 would be 1.5 by 3.5. So the thickness on a 2x4 or a 2x6 or a 2x8 would actually be 1.5. So I'm going to type in 1.5 and hit OK. All right, so that side is done. Now we need to apply material. So if I right click on this, go to physical material. Now I can go ahead and go down to my wood. I can find pine, which is what a 2x4 or 2x6 would be made of. I'm going to go ahead and drag that pine and just drag it right on top and close out. All right, we're missing some color on this, so we're also going to be painting this. All right, because we're not just going to send that out with that hardwood or softwood exposed. So I'm going to right click on this, go to appearance, and now I'm going to go ahead and just bring in another color of paint. So I like this metal flake green. I'm going to go ahead and close out. And now we can go ahead and save. All right, so my side is done. So now I can go ahead and close out on that. All right, so I have a new untitled file, so I'm going to go ahead and do a save. Okay, and I'm going to be calling this one Beanbag Toss Game Assembly. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a save. Now I'm going to be coming up to the waffle. I'm going to hit the button there to expose that data panel. And now I'm going to bring in my side. So I'm going to just simply hold and drag that across the line. I'm going to drop that into this environment. So anytime you bring a part into this environment, it's always going to be going to the same spot. It doesn't matter which part, it's always going to go to the same spot, like the origin for this environment. So in order to move that, we got some options. We can use this dot right here to pull it, or we can use the arrows and we can actually just shuffle this back and get it off that origin. All right, now while you're also here, we can also change the orientation of the part. Maybe this part is coming in looking flat like so. All right, we can use the dial. Okay, we can bring this up. Just remember these are going to be multiples of 90. All right, so 0, 90, 180, 270. So I can see it's at 0 degrees. All right, that's laying, that's going to be standing up straight. All right, we can also rotate it this way if you want to do something like that. But in my case, I'm going to go ahead and leave it exactly where it's at. I like to look at that. I'm going to go ahead and say okay. All right, so this wedge is exactly where it needs to be, but the problem is if I pick it, hold it, you can see it's still able to move. That's a problem. The first part you bring into an assembly, you always have to ground it. Grounding it means it's simply just taking it, putting it in place, and it's not able to move. All right, so in case you want to know where this is, I understand there's only one part in my assembly, but if we had a bunch of parts, if we want to know which part is which, if you pick on it in this environment, it's going to give you this sort of barber pole striping underneath the actual part. You're going to know which one that you're dealing with once you pick on it. So I'm going to right click on it, come up here and ground it. Okay, if you have a box like this, just go ahead and hit continue. All right, and now if I try moving this, that part is not going to move. I'm now going to bring a second side in. I'm going to pull it off the origin. All right, it's in the same orientation as the last one, so I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay. And now I'm going to bring in my beanbag toss game top. Okay, grab it by the origin, pull it up. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and say okay. All right, so once again, the only part that we're grounding is the first part. The second part is not grounded. It should be able to move. Never ground the second part. And in our case, we're never going to ground that third part either. The only part that's going to get grounded is the first part. All right, so now we are ready to begin applying our joints. Okay, so up here, you can see, all right, this little hinge icon, that is the joint. Okay, so I'm going to pick on joint. All right, so what Fusion is going to be asking us is, well, what 2 points do you want to align and how do you want it to behave? Okay, so if you kind of take a look here, okay, we're going to be using free orbit. All right, free orbit is having you hold down shift, hold down the middle scroll wheel on your mouse and moving the cursor, and that's how we can do a free orbit. Okay, along with free orbit, you're also going to be working with zoom, which is just pushing forward and back on the scroll wheel. And you're also going to be using pan, which is holding down on the scroll wheel on the mouse and moving it. Now, in case you get a view that's going to be getting a little bit weird and you're not understanding what's happening, if you want to reset it to go back to home, just hit the home view. All right, so that is the biggest part I think about assembly that's the hardest for students to figure out over time, is just knowing how to manipulate the view to get it where you want. All right, so I'm still here in joint. All right, so what I'm going to do is think about this. I want this surface here to match up with this surface right here. Okay, but not just surfaces are we dealing with, but we're also dealing with points. If you think about it, I would want that point right there to match up with this point right here. All right, so I'm going to flip this over, look at the bottom of my board, and I'm going to come in here. All right, we can see that there's now this little origin coin. All right, and this coin is going to behave exactly the same wherever you're going as long as you're in the middle of a surface. Once you get over to different points, then it's going to start adopting different characteristics, and that's what gets a lot of people in trouble. So what I tell my students to do is just start here at the middle of the surface, and I'm now going to hold down control on the keyboard, and now whatever point I go to, it's going to be aligned to that surface and how it originally looked. Okay, that's going to be super helpful. So once I am seeing all those points showing up, I'm going to go to the point that I want, and I'm just going to pick. Now I'm going to use orbit, flip this over. Now I'm going to come in and bring into this surface. So I'm starting here in the middle of the surface. I'm going to hold down control. And now I'm going to start looking for those points to use. So I know that that point there is where that's going to go. It's going to come right into it. Okay. If I look at my motion, we can see we are using rigid constraint, and that's the only one we're going to use, okay, for this project. Okay, you can always animate it. It's going to show that those two are not able to come apart from each other. All right, I'm going to go ahead and say okay. Or to finish this part up, okay, I have this second wedge. I'm going to be doing the same exact thing I did the first time. So going to joint, moving into the surface, holding control, finding that point, flipping this over, coming into this surface, holding down control, and finding this point. Now that board's going to go right on top. I'm going to hit OK. All right, so now if I try grabbing the top or this side or even this side, nothing is able to move because they're fully constrained, all right, because it all goes back to, you know, what we just did with the joints, and then our original part was grounded, so nothing is going to be able to move. All right, so the back portion of this, if we take a look, we need to add some structure to this. All right, because if we just left it as these two wedges right now, we could have some force going on top of that box, and it's going to force those structures to spread out, and it could break the box. So we need to actually build a board for the back of this. So I'm going to be using inspect. Okay, and if we come up here to measure under the inspect panel, we can come here right to a line. It's going to tell you how long that is. So that's 18 inches. What I can also do is I can inspect from points to point. So point here, coming over to this point, we can see that's 45 inches long. So it's going to be 18 inches tall, 45 long. But the problem is if I brought it all the way to the top with that 18 inches, it's going to cut into the board. All right, it's never actually going to assemble in real life. Okay, so before I get going on, I'm going to go ahead and do a save and OK. Okay, I can close out of this. And now I'm going to go ahead and get started with a new design. I'm going to go ahead and do a save. I'm going to call this one Bean Bag Toss Game Back. I'm going to go ahead and do a save. All right, so that one's ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and hide the data panel. And now I'm going to go ahead and create my sketch. Okay, so I'm going to just say I'm going to start on this work plane. I'm going to create a rectangle starting from the origin. All right, that was going to go up 18 inches tall. I'm just going to say I want it to be 16 inches tall. I'm going to hit tab, and then the bottom was 45 inches wide. I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so we have our board there. Now the thing is, if you think about it, if we enclose that, we wouldn't be able to get the bean bags out of the inside of the box, so we're going to have to probably cut out a window here. All right, so I'm just going to come up here, use line command, start here from this line, go up, keep it vertical, send this over like so, and bring it back down. All right, I can now start using my trim, okay, and I can trim out that portion. Now I can start adding particular dimensions I want this to be. So this from here to here, I'm going to say is 4 inches over. This from here to here, I'm going to say is 4 inches over. This from here to here, I'm going to say is 12 inches tall. Okay, and then if I tried applying a dimension here, it's probably going to say it's over constraining it because it has all the information that it basically needs. So we're good. I'm going to go ahead and finish that sketch up. I'm going to go ahead and do an extrude. Pull this out. True thickness would be 1.5 inches. And then finally, I'm going to come up here, go to my physical material, go find my pine, apply that pine to it. But I'm also going to paint this. So come in here, go to my appearance, and find some paint that I want to use on it. I'm going to use red. I'm going to close out, and now I can go ahead and save that. All right, so that's good to go. So I can close out on that. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my assembly back up, have that ready to go. And now I'm going to go ahead and just bring that back into my assembly. Pull this off the origin, say OK. Well, before that, if you need to rotate it, you can do that using the dials. But in my case, we're good. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. So I'm going to flip this over, come in here to this back, go into my joint, and I'm going to say I want to start here at the center, hold down Control, use my filter and find the exact point. Flip this around to this edge, bring this in here to this point. All right, that's going to go right in there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say OK. All right, and there's that back portion. So I don't know about you, I'm kind of looking at this box and I feel like maybe this angle that we're seeing right here is maybe a little bit too aggressive. Okay, let's see what Fusion can do with this. So I'm going to come back into my data panel. I'm going to open up my side. I'm going to come down here and look at my original sketch. I'm going to right click on that sketch and I'm going to edit the sketch. I can change my angle here from 30 to whatever I want. I'm going to say 15 degrees. I'm going to cut it in half. All right, now we're going to see that's really coming down, okay, with the angle. I can finish the sketch. I can do a save, say OK. I can close out of the part. All right, and now when I go back into the assembly, right, you're going to see these little exclamation sort of signs. I'm going to just double click on it and it's going to update it. Now, when I updated it, I can also see that that back that I originally created is way too tall for this. So I can use inspect. I can come in here and pick on this. That is now saying that's 9.317 inches tall. So what I could do is I could shave this down on the side where it's only 7 inches tall, and I think that back would work pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and close. Go back over to my data panel, open up my back, go back into the original sketch down the timeline, pick on Edit Sketch, and now I'm going to take this and bring this from 16 down to 7 inches. I'm going to take this from 12 inches down to, I don't know, let's just say 5 inches. Okay, and I can finish the sketch. Look at this in the home view, do a save, say OK, close out of the part, and now I'm back in the assembly. All right, so we can see the exclamation point is here again. So if we double click it, now we're going to see what that new part would look like on the back of it. Okay, we could honestly even bring that up a little bit if we wanted to, but we still have a space there to put our arms underneath it and whatever. Okay, but there you go. That is how we create that carnival game, that bags game, using our fling machine, using all the joints, creating all the parts and all that stuff. Okay, it's ready to go.